Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Philosophical Weightlifting Podcast. I'm joined by Celia Gold. I was trying to think of like a witty, fun, interesting intro and, kind of missed the mark on that one. So hopefully this will suffice.
It's
Celia.
okay. It happens. It
And-
happens. Maybe that means that my last name just, is enough.
yes, yes, yeah. Often on the podium, taking gold. So appropriate.
Yeah,
Um, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good. I'm just, hanging out. I live in Colorado and the weather has been very confusing here. It was like 70 degrees yesterday,
Mm,
30 degrees today.
wow.
My dog can't decide if he wants to like eat snow or eat dirt. So, it's been good.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm sure we'll kind of I think touch base on everything to do with weightlifting and a little bit more than that. But before we kind of dig into, I actually first heard your name or kind of heard about you from Hannah Swarple. Um I know Hannah, she was in the program. She was in the master's program at WVU. I'm in the doctorate program. And I would talk to Hannah and she mentioned Celia Gold. And then I think I just saw you start working with Brittany and I was like, oh shit, that's who Hannah's been talking about this entire time. I think Hannah even mentioned like counting for you at a competition.
Yeah,
Um,
no, she did at, like, AO poor Hannah, at, like, AO finals. I think it was the year before COVID or something, and I missed my first 2 attempts, and my coach at the time was Coach Bob, and he had given
yeah.
instructions on, like, what my attempts were supposed to be, and I bullied her into just letting me go up. Um, I did win, if that helps, but I did in fact bully Hannah, so Hannah, I'm so sorry.
That does take the edge off. It does take the edge off. Winning can cure almost anything, and which is why I wanted to have you on the podcast. And I think a great way to kind of introduce the Arnold, which was Arnold's I call it like sports whatever, but like the Arnold weekend was a few days ago, and you competed on the Rogue Strength stage. So maybe you can talk us through that experience specifically, just kind of competing on that platform with, I think like from my perspective, like the biggest audience you're going to see at a weightlifting competition, at least in the US.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a really cool experience, and I always feel lucky when I get to do experiences like that. Being on the same stage as Maddie, Olivia,
Mm,
Sophie, all of those girls is incredible. I think at a point I was sitting in the back room and I was looking around and I was like, yeah, I think every single girl back here has snatched 100, at least in
damn.
training, if not on the platform, which is crazy if you think about where the sport was
Yeah.
5 years ago. And I compete for Team Israel. So even if you think about like Europeans in the back room, it's not even necessarily the case there. So just the athletes alone were incredible. And then yeah, it was a huge audience. I think the nice thing for me was that mentally, I was like, "This does not mean anything qualification-wise," and so I can just go out there and have fun, and it's mostly just like an ego show for me where I'm like, I wanna hit my lifts, right? Because I care about the sport and I care about doing well and showing up for myself, for my team, but, that was a nice way to take the edge off, but yeah, it was an insane vibe. Walking into the expo
Mm,
was wild because it was just so loud, and then even in the back room, there was, I think, strongman going on the other side of our training, so your coach is like, "Go hit 65," and then there's an announcer telling you about, like, the biggest record to have ever been broken in the
mm,
history of the world
yeah,
right
yeah,
next to you, so
that's
it was
cool.
definitely, a test of being able to stay focused, but yeah, it was amazing, and everybody was so supportive, and it was really cool.
That's awesome. And I got a bit of a glimpse of that. So I Max and I both coach powerlifting and we had athletes on the
Right.
powerlifting side of the expo. So you walk in, you go kind of to the far edge. If you're walking away from the red, white, and blue platforms, you walk almost as far as you can for the expo. You go inside, and it's right in the corner, and there's like stadium seating, very high stadium seating, and then this railing that kind of goes along it. And there are just like people funneling in and out the entire time, standing against the railing. The stadium seating's completely packed. And there's a fucking load going on. And then you walk in the weightlift, like a back room for weightlifting, like kind of on the red, white, and blue platforms with stars and stripes. It's like quiet.
Yeah,
And it's kind of
chill.
calm. And you're like, okay, this is an interesting juxtaposition. So I can imagine being in the expo in the back room for weightlifting. It had to have had just like a different energy and different feel. Did you kind of feel that like warming up, or did it feel like a just like a major competition to you?
It felt like a major competition. It definitely I think one thing that I did differently was that I didn't even put headphones in because I didn't
Mm,
want to be
interesting.
startled
Yeah.
when I took them out and heard how
Yeah.
loud it was. So it's almost like you just had to roll with it and accept the chaos
Mm,
and kind of figure out how to lift through that because when you got on the platform, that's how it's going to be. It's funny because I feel like a lot of weightlifters, myself included, will sometimes be like, "Oh, don't walk in front of me," like when you're at
yeah.
a gym.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I am absolutely never gonna say that ever again.
Yeah.
Normally, I only mind if somebody's, like, really close, mostly because 'cause I'm concerned for their safety,
Yeah.
in case I miss it, but it was funny because you think about, like, the purest weightlifters who are like, "I must have a
Yeah.
clear
Yeah.
vision," and then the Arnold was just chaos, and there were, like, people probably like, chugging energy drinks and screaming
Yeah.
but, yeah, it was really cool. I think it
Yeah.
was a
That's
good
awesome.
test.
Yeah, it's a great test and probably a great learning experience. I like some of those sessions in the back. Because there's so many athletes around okay, literally the exact same number that it's like, okay, this is, I mean, if you wanted to compare this to just like like a heavy day or like a perfect competition setting where it's like, okay, you get to kind of follow yourself or you get to kind of pick your own attempts, like this is not that. And
No.
it's not going to be. And I think that is also what makes it so much more fun is that as a coach, like you want to win, like it's the most important thing, but also being able to play the game is kind of what you signed up for. If you like as a
Yeah,
coach, if you go out and
absolutely.
you're like, I hope everything's perfect, it's like, well, that's not fun. Like that's not
Right.
interesting.
You could
Like
do that Friday at your gym.
yeah, totally. Yeah, it's like go have a heavy day with your boy, your people at some local club. But I love saying, "Okay, there's 12 people in the session, they're all at the same weight. Like, what are we gonna do to get the most out of this?" And realizing that's different. So as you mentioned, it's like, okay, this performance doesn't mean anything in the sense of like it doesn't have long-term ramifications.
Right.
So I can have fun, I can enjoy it, and I can also learn from it and be more prepared for, if you do the Arnold next year or um something else comes up where you feel like you're in a similar situation. So as far as the actual performance goes, how do you feel you did?
I'm never satisfied, but it felt like a good mental win. Like, I feel
Mm,
like I was able to accept my nerves, but, like, I felt nervous, was able to say, "Okay, I'm nervous right now," and then, like,
yeah,
kinda move on,
yeah,
which is something I have been working on, right? Because 'Cause you're in the back room at Europeans and Worlds, you're going to be nervous, like, if you care.
yeah,
And so working on that has been a big kind of mental thing for me, so I was really happy mentally. I mean, at the end of the day, I just need to make more lifts. I know that I need to get better. I'm under no illusion, that I am as good as I want to be, and so I think it's all just data. I mean, for me, in the snatches, I opened at 97, which is, like, an average opener for me. I missed 100, which I was upset about, and also, do I miss 100 sometimes in training? Yes. So, like, I think as
yeah,
I've gotten older, I'm able to kind of see that more where it's like, I can be really
mm,
pissed about this, and also, what do I need to fix? Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I have no right
yes.
to be, like, annoyed if I can't always hit 100 without misses in training. And then I was happy oh, did my headphones turn off? Oh,
I can hear
sorry.
you. Yeah,
And then, yeah, I came back and hit 101, which I was happy about, but
nice.
again,
Yeah.
I do that in training, and so, the biggest takeaway is I need to get more consistent in
Mm,
snatches. I would much rather I mean, I'd rather hit all 6 lifts, but I'd much rather miss a 3rd because it was really heavy
yeah,
than miss a 2nd and then hit
yeah.
a 3rd because I was just, like, being dumb or being inconsistent, so, I think that like, that is where some of my frustration with myself comes in, where, I need to be a more consistent athlete, because it doesn't really matter what your bests are in training if you can't build to that in
Right.
comp without missing. So, yeah. And then clean and jerks were fine. I hit 28 on my opener, which is a pretty average opener for me, and then we went 31, and then I missed the jerk at 33. But the positive I am taking away is that I think for, like, a year, I was capable of hitting 100 and 130, and it was
Mm,
really hard for me to do on the platform because I would just miss leading up to it. And so I think the last 4 or 5 I think 4 meets I've done, I've hit at least 100 and at least 130, and so for
wow.
me, that's, like, Yeah, and I'm hitting it on second or like with 4 attempts and not just because I had a perfect day. And so I think that is definitely a win. I want to be hitting that on my first attempts, but
Yeah.
baby steps.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think kind of what you mentioned is not being, I think I don't remember if you use the word delusional, but I think being a little delusional of the sense of, okay, my training's been one way. When I show up to compete, I shouldn't just expect it to be different because I would
Right.
prefer it to be different. It's like I'm
Right.
how I'm going to show up under the most pressure is how I've been showing up.
Yeah.
And we're going to see
No, and
that.
I
And
was
some, no, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say I absolutely used to be that way more delusional where I'd be like, okay, but I hit 104 and 130 in training. And it's like, yeah, after 77 misses, like
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
what world does that
Yes.
translate?
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
there's space for saying, "Okay, but in a competition, I might be a little less in my own way," in the sense of, like, if I train by myself in a garage, or if I train by myself in a gym, or if training's been, one way or the other, when I show up to compete, at least I think you're gonna get more accurate data as to what you're capable
Yeah,
of. Um,
definitely.
or more of like a transparent perspective instead of like, as you mentioned, it's every training session is so influenced by many, many things. And you kind of are trying to read the aggregate of that. And that's what a competition performance does. It's like, how's my training been on the whole? And we're going to kind of see that.
Definitely.
And I think,
Definitely.
for some athletes I had, they showed up and they fucking crushed it. And it's like, okay, when we get out of our own way, we can do really, really well. And then maybe for some, it's like, yeah, we're kind of pressing out jerks too often, and we probably shouldn't do that as much. And maybe back off, maybe do more volume and lighter percentages, like 70 to 85%, where you have just cleaner reps. So when you get that big boost and you feel great, you're not slow with your arms, and because we're
Yes.
not going to get by. We're not going to get great calls because we feel like we deserve them. So I love that. I love just having that kind of realistic perspective of your own performance and then also of your own training. I think that's useful for a lot of people to hear.
Definitely. Yeah. And Brittany and I actually track my misses. That
Mm,
was something that we started doing early into her coaching me because I I needed to be reined in, because I was definitely the kind of athlete that if you were like, you need to hit this number, I would hit it,
yeah.
like at all costs. And I got way too used to being
Mm,
able to take that extra attempt. And we had sat down when Brittany and I first started working together, and it was like, okay, what are
yeah.
your goals? What are we doing? How can we, like, why is training so different than competitions? Because I didn't feel like I was in my head. I didn't feel like it was like a mental thing. And then when you look at the data, it's like, yeah, well,
Yeah.
you're missing a lot. And so your
Yeah.
body is used to missing, and your body is also used to missing
Yeah.
and then hitting, which isn't great in a meet setting. So we've definitely improved that. And I think also I used to be somebody that was like, I have to hit it in training to be able to hit it on the
Mm,
platform.
yeah.
And we've definitely gotten over that. Where I think my best clean and jerk this like training cycle, because we are training through the Arnold, was like 28 because we were really focused on making technical changes at like
Mm,
90%.
okay.
Um, and I hit 31, and the miss at 33 was not information that we did not know about my
Yeah.
jerks.
Yeah.
Like I need to get more consistent at heavy
Yeah.
jerks. If you put it on the blocks after I missed it, could I probably have jerked it? Yeah, but that doesn't matter in a
Yeah. Yeah.
competition. So, I think it's just like being able to have the confidence to be like, I can do more than I do in training without being delusional is the right balance.
Yeah. So, I think that's useful to hear. I mean, you talked about your performance, and it sounds like you had a lot of fun, and learned a lot kind of heading forward. I think to shift gears a little bit, it would be interesting to hear about how you got started in weightlifting. So maybe you can just detail, how you were introduced to the sport, and we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, definitely. I started well, when I was a child, I, was obsessed with working out, probably for all the wrong reasons. I really cared what I looked like, and all
Yeah.
I wanted to do was, like, be skinny, and so
Mm.
I was, like, on Weight Watchers when I was in 4th grade or something
Holy shit.
crazy. Like, I was
Oh
really
my
I
god.
basically yeah, I, like, gave my parents an ultimatum. I was like, "Let me do this diet or I will, like, start having an eating disorder." I don't know. I was a ridiculous child. And the eating disorder came later anyway, so but so I was obsessive about working out.
Yeah.
I was in, like, middle school, I would go to the gym before and after, and I was just all about cardio. That's all I cared
Mm.
about. And then when my mother turned 50, as all do, she started CrossFit. She'd like never lifted a weight in her life. And she decided to join our local CrossFit gym. And she absolutely loved it and was like, "Celia, you love working out. You should come with me." Little did she know I had such an obsession with working out. But it actually wound up being for the best. So I walked into a CrossFit gym. It was the first time I kind of saw strength
Mm.
over just aesthetics, and I loved it. So I started competing in CrossFit. I think I was like predispositioned to be a little bit strong,
Mm.
so that was helpful. I got,
Yeah.
like, good attention at the gym for being strong, and that really, like, shifted everything the way I looked at eating, working out, being a human. And so I competed in CrossFit for a while. I did like the teenage CrossFit Games in 2015. My sister and I both did. And Phil Andrews, when he was still CEO, had reached out to a group of us from that like a lot of CrossFit and kind of introduced us into the sport. And that's how I got
Wow.
started with weightlifting. Yeah.
Yeah. How old were you when you started CrossFit?
I was a freshman in high school, so I was like
Okay.
14, I want to
Okay.
say. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you play any sports prior or like during your time doing CrossFit?
Yeah. Yes. So I was a cheerleader and a lacrosse player in high
Okay.
school. I lasted in cheerleading through my sophomore year, and then I stopped because at that point I was like getting very serious about CrossFit. And then I played lacrosse through my junior year.
Okay.
And I really loved lacrosse. I thought I wanted to play in college, and then as I got more into CrossFit and weightlifting, like towards
Mm.
the end of my junior year, beginning of my senior year, I realized that I did not, in fact, want to play lacrosse in
Yeah.
college. And so I
Gonna
but
lift
my poor
weights.
parents but, yeah, so I, like, was playing lacrosse on in all of the, like, summer tournaments and everything like that, and then I one day was like, I don't wanna do this anymore. I actually wanna be really good at CrossFit and weightlifting," and I actually kept doing CrossFit through college up until my senior year, um, because I saw that Tia Claire Toomey could do both, and therefore nobody could tell me that I could not. Yeah, so it actually took me a really long time to stop doing CrossFit and fully commit to
Mm.
weightlifting.
Yeah. And then when you started competing in weightlifting at like what age was that?
It was my senior year of high school, so I wanna say
Okay.
or yeah, my senior year, so 16,
Okay.
17. I did 1 youth nationals.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Was that a pretty
that was my,
seamless
like
transition?
from CrossFit into weightlifting.
Yeah.
Yes and no. I watched some of my videos and I was like somebody told me you couldn't drop the bar from above, so I was literally just, like, bringing it all the way down. It's, like, stuff like that
Yeah.
I see, like, are very
Yeah.
classic of, like, a CrossFitter who does a weightlifting meet, and they're
Yes.
like, "I cannot drop the bar." And also just the way I was training, was different, you know? I cared about number of reps, not
Mm.
quality of reps, and I think you can still see that in how I lift now, and, like, we're trying to change it, but I've done however 1,000 reps in my life, and if 800 of them were or like 200 of them were good reps, you know, you have to
Right.
even
Yeah,
it out.
yeah.
So we're still working on making every rep good. But yeah, it was fairly seamless in that I already really enjoyed being strong. I loved squatting. I
Yeah.
loved doing the Olympic lifts. The hard part for me was giving up cardio, honestly. And that's
Mm.
why it took
Yeah.
me so long. Um yeah, like, all the way through college, and I had really great, like, mentors and people that told me to stop. I When I was a freshman at University of Michigan, I was, like, really lucky I got put in touch with Bo Sandoval,
Yeah.
and I would get to train with him in the weight room, and he would almost
Crazy.
daily tell me to stop doing CrossFit, to which I did not listen. But it stuck with me, and when I finally made the decision, it was because of him. Then the Bergner Natalie and Casey Bergner randomly moved to Ann Arbor, and so I got
Wow.
to, like, learn from them a little
Holy
bit,
shit.
which was incredible. Yeah, and then I had Coach Bob Morris coach me. So I really had incredible mentors, and I think with each person, I learned so much, and I also, like, got closer to stopping doing CrossFit.
Mm.
But again, I was it was a mental thing where I was like, "I can't not do burpees every day, that's crazy." But eventually, Coach Bob was kinda like, I will coach I would love to coach you, but I will not coach you if you're also
Mm,
doing CrossFit. Like, it's not
yeah.
sustainable. Like, you won't be able to survive my programming. And he was right. Um, and so I stopped doing CrossFit and switched over.
Yeah. What do you remember the first number the numbers you did at your first competition?
Oh, I want to say it was like I probably snatched 40 something and clean
Holy
and
shit.
jerked.
Okay.
Yeah, and clean and jerked
Wow.
like 50 or 65. It's funny because I have a younger sister, Romy, and she is a year and a half younger than me. And we used to fight. I mean, we still fight, but when we were like both competing in both CrossFit
Yeah.
and weightlifting, we used to fight. And I remember so distinctly at our first meet, we had to do one meet to qualify for nationals. So maybe I was snatching 50. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah,
But I missed my first snatch and I did not understand how weightlifting meets worked. So I missed my first snatch and my sister had started lighter than me and she had made hers. So in my head, I was like, she beat me. I was inconsolable. After one snatch, I still had 2 more to go. Hysterically crying, trying to like storm out. I was like 15. It's like, I have to leave. I can't do. My sister just beat me. And my coach had to like shake me to be like, first of all, you're being a brat. Second of all, like you have 2 more lifts. And I want to be
yeah.
fine. I did beat her. My sister has never out totaled me in a meet. Don't worry. Um, but that was like my biggest concern in that moment was
Mm,
that my younger sister just beat me in something. But luckily, she did not. I pulled myself together.
yeah, and it sound I mean, for some reason, I expected you to say, like, 70, 100, your first meet where you're, like, you just show up and you absolutely demolish things, but it sounds like you started from quote unquote humble beginnings. You didn't start with like, oh,
Yes.
there's this proclivity toward a big performance, and you put that together, and then you're like, oh, this is really fun because I'm really good. It's more so like, oh, I'm doing this thing. I love lifting weights and love CrossFit at the time,
Yeah.
and you just continued to kind of take that as far as you could. Once you started training with Bo, so I know I don't really know Bo, but I've spoken to him a couple of times. I know a lot of people who know him. Um, and I know his kind of like impact in the coaching space in weightlifting and S&C, and I've kind of followed his journey. So when you started working or getting like support from Bo, and then started getting support from the Bergners, and then started getting coaching from Bob, like what was that journey like for you in terms of your development as an athlete?
Yeah. Um, it's kind of crazy because so I was in high school, right? And my CrossFit coach, who was amazing, became my
Mm,
weightlifting coach. He learned about the sport with my sister and I because like we had this
yeah,
opportunity to, compete at nationals. And so he was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna learn weightlifting.
yeah.
Um, And then I get to college I'm from Connecticut, so all of a sudden I'm in
Oh, okay.
Michigan in a brand new place. I don't know anybody. I'm like, I was really competitive. I was like, I know I still want to compete. I want to compete in CrossFit. I want to compete in weightlifting. And Bo showed me what I needed to do. Even though I wasn't ready to do it at the time, he
Mm,
showed me what I was going to need to do to be better, to like be a real weightlifter. And I learned a lot about like mental fortitude from him and just how to like push through. Um, and yeah, he was just an incredible mentor. He was very steady, like always there, always gave me a safe space to train, always gave me, even though like he wasn't my coach, he gave me all of the support he possibly
mm,
could, was like very much, I think sometimes it can be awkward if you're like physically in one place and your coach is in another and to try to
yeah,
like
yeah.
and Bo taught me that, like, that's very possible and that if adults put their egos aside, like, at the time I was a child. But so, like, if adults can put their ego aside, like, it's very possible for them to work together, which I
Mm,
had not experienced before, like, in the coaching space, which I had not experienced before. Even in high school, I had, like, competing, not with CrossFit, but with sports. It was always like, if you talk to another coach, then your coach would be mad. And I always had a lot of anxiety about that. And Bo kind of, like, eased that for me where he
yeah.
was just concerned about my own success. And at one
Mm,
point I was cutting weight that I shouldn't have been anyways, but he like connected me with somebody who would help me. And when I got there, there was somebody like to the meet that I was cutting weight for. He like had somebody that he knew that was a colleague waiting for me to help me cut the rest of my weight and stuff like that. So yeah, that was really cool. And he was also really honest with me. He was like, Celia,
yeah.
you're not going to get far in weightlifting if you are training twice a day and doing CrossFit
Mm,
in the mornings. Like
yeah.
that, it's
Yeah.
every second that you're spending not doing weightlifting, somebody else is spending working on weightlifting.
Yeah.
Um, And he was also the first like purist weightlifting coach, you know, to give me
Yeah.
real technical advice.
Yeah.
Just because at the time I was working with more of a CrossFit background. So yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah.
And he
That
also
must have been
pushed
like a
me.
yeah, yeah. That must have been a tremendous experience, and sounds like he had really big impact. And and I'm sure if I were to talk to Bo about like his time kind of like um supporting you, like I'm sure he would say similar things. Like as a coach, that's the impact you're hoping to have, is to be able to utilize your skill set and be able to provide athletes with a place to make progress, but also to like um help them kind of funnel their efforts better. And I coach mostly weightlifters, a couple of powerlifters, and one woman who's like a super total athlete. And she qualified for nationals at the Arnold. And she also competed at the uh, Raw Challenge, which is the
Oh,
powerlifting
wow.
competition. And we're like, okay, well, for nationals, though, we need to just like do weightlifting. And we need to like
Yeah.
podium and fucking medal and like start
Yeah.
to make a push to be kind of like at the top in your weight class. And she trains generally twice a day and power lifts in the morning and weight lifts in the afternoon. It's like, okay, maybe we have a morning kind of weightlifting session. It's more technical or has some strength
Yeah.
work, and then come in and do our kind of more heavy weightlifting movements in the PM. So it's actually interesting hearing that from your perspective of making that same switch.
Yeah. And it was hard. So kudos to this athlete because it was,
Yeah.
like you kind of latch on to, for me at least, like routine and no, this is what I have to do. Like this is
Yes.
hard, so therefore it's better. Also, I think the other thing that Bo did for me that like any coaches, I think is like such an incredible thing that they can give to athletes is just like giving people a sense of belonging.
Mm,
Especially when I was younger, I really struggled to feel like like I deserved to be in whatever space I was in, especially in weightlifting where I was like, "Oh, I'm not good enough." Even though like I was medaling at youths, juniors, like I was there, but I always really struggled to feel like I should be there. And then
yeah.
all of a sudden I'm supposed to be training in the Michigan weight room with like the girls lacrosse players, the
Yeah.
men's track team, like all of these people who were college athletes. I was not. I was like acutely aware of that. And so
Yeah.
I felt really awkward at first. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't belong here. They're all going to be thinking, why are you here? And Bo just did a really good job of making me feel like I did in fact belong there and that I
Mm,
had every right to be there. And I think that's such a powerful thing to do for people. And it's funny because as my weightlifting journey has progressed and now I compete for another country and being at Europeans, being at Worlds where I see Team USA, like that
yeah.
same theme can come up. And I think Bo really set the base for me to say, like, it's okay to feel like you belong, you know? It's
Yeah.
okay that you don't have to shy away because it's awkward or it might be uncomfortable. Or you're so concerned what other people are thinking.
Yeah. I think yeah, I was wondering if I should bring this up or not. I had a therapy session prior to this, and kind of a similar idea of like, okay, I had something happen, and I have my own evaluation of like how it went, and then I'm like, okay, well, I should let other people know how I feel, and it's like, well, they don't necessarily feel that way too. So I think projecting my evaluation of it is kind of unfair to myself, right? It's like
Right.
I can be hypercritical and say, okay, it was really, really bad, but that might actually not actually be true. So if you say, oh, well, I only have won bronze at this meet, so I'm not that good. It's like, that's actually not true too. And I don't think anyone probably feels that way. If anything, they're like, damn, Celia's a badass, or whatever context it may be. So I think that that's like a really important thing for people to kind of pick up on if they struggle with it too. So thank you for sharing that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
yeah. And then what was the next step in the journey for you? Where do you feel like it kind of took that next step into getting further down the rabbit hole of weightlifting?
Yes. Okay. So now freshman year is done. I joined a sorority my freshman year. I don't even I feel like a lot of people don't know that about me. And nothing against sororities. It was just like not for me because at that point I was like hyper locked in to weightlifting. Especially working with Bo, I was like very committed. And then Bo left for another opportunity. Um, and I
Mm,
walk into my CrossFit gym one day and Casey and Natalie Bergner are there. Um, and so that was kind of the next phase for me, which is pretty incredible. And anybody who like knows Bo, Natalie, Casey, like these are really incredible humans who are so smart and also just like so kind.
Mm.
So the next phase was still working with my coach from Connecticut. But Natalie or Casey would kind of watch me, give me advice. I'd pick their brains about their times competing, everything like that. I think along the same time, I started supporting someone named David in creating the Michigan weightlifting team. And we kind of
Mm.
just started that
Oh,
process. And we
awesome.
wound up, yeah, which is really cool. And it's really cool that like at the Arnold now, I see the Michigan weightlifting team and I'm like,
Yeah.
none of them know who I am, but I'm just like staring because I'm like being really creepy to these
Yeah.
college kids because it's just like so nice to see because when I was there it was me and then me and Hannah and a couple of other
Yeah.
people and now to see how it's grown has been incredible. But sorry. Anyways, so we started creating that weightlifting team. I was very locked in, but I was still again trying to do CrossFit. So that's my sophomore year. Then my junior year I studied abroad and it was the first
Mm.
time since my senior year or my freshman year of high school where training became a little bit more difficult, right? Because up until that point, I was 15 minutes away from a gym. I was, in an environment that
Yeah.
I was comfortable in. And even when I was at school away from home, like I very quickly had Bo as a mentor, as like somebody. And
Mm.
so by the time he left, I was comfortable. And all of a sudden I was in Spain and I had this choice where it was like, do you like this? Like, do you want to put in the effort that it's going to take, to go to a gym and talk to people in a different language and
Mm.
maybe not get to do all of the fun abroad things that everybody's doing. And I took a little bit of time with that decision, I won't lie, but I think that is like one of the more impactful things in my weightlifting career was like giving myself that option of,
Yeah.
do I want to keep doing this? Because it is a choice, right? Like weightlifting is not, it's never going to pay as like a full-time job for most people, unless you're the 0.01%. And so that was a very formative experience. And I decided yes. So I found a CrossFit gym in Spain. I trained there. I kept training weightlifting and CrossFit. And then when I got back, that's really when I realized that I needed to make a choice because
Mm.
I was starting to get older. I was going to my senior year of college. And I realized that like I was going to have to get a job and it was going to be really hard to work, do CrossFit and do weightlifting and give all that
Man.
I wanted to
Yeah.
give. So that's when I switched and I had already known Coach Bob from helping to start the club team at Michigan because he was the
Mm.
coach there. Yeah. And so the co-founder of the Michigan weightlifting team, David, is or was one of Coach Bob's athletes. And he had been pushing me to work with Coach Bob for months. Coach Bob and I had a couple of experiences where Coach Bob was like, okay, I hear you're ready. And I was like, ooh, I am, but I still want to do CrossFit.
Yeah.
So I finally came to him and was like, okay, I am done with CrossFit. Like, I will be your athlete. And we switched after universities. It was like junior universities when it was in California somewhere.
Okay.
And I'll never forget in my first session with Coach Bob, I landed on my birthday, went to the gym, and he gave me like a 10 by 10 of back squats. I was like, all
Oh
right,
my
we're doing this.
God. Holy
Yep.
shit.
It was like day after a meet too. But it was great. I mean, it was exactly what I wanted, especially as somebody
Yeah.
who was
Yes.
giving up volume. I was like, please hurt me. But yeah, so that was kind of the next evolution. Yeah. And then I graduated. I started working at Google. At that point I was still training twice a day because Coach Bob had given me, I was doing 8 sessions a week. And then I was working full time in office, which was tough. I like think back to when I first graduated and I was like waking up every day, like 4:45, going to the gym,
Yeah.
driving to the office, which at the time was like a 45-minute drive, and then coming back to the gym. Yeah, it was good. It was, sometimes hard is good, but it was rough. And I think, and at that point, the team started to grow. The Michigan weightlifting team started to grow, and I was still living in Ann Arbor. And so I think if you ask any of the kids, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse. Am I allowed to curse?
Fuck yeah.
If you ask any of the kids who were training at Michigan at that point, they're probably like, Celia's a fucking bitch. Because I would come in after, it would be like hour 15 of the day. And I was like, great, now I have another session to do.
Yeah.
People would ask me questions or they'd be like missing and they'd ask me a question and I'd like answer. And then I'd be like, okay, but I have to do this before I watch you again. Cause if you miss, I might miss. It's like, I had zero tolerance. Yeah, and then I switched roles, still with Google, moved out to Colorado, stayed with Coach Bob, competed at the Maccabi Games, and that is when I was introduced to Team Israel and the Team Israel people, and they really took me in. I won the Maccabi Games,
Mm,
and they gave me an opportunity to compete for Israel, and then I did my first Worlds that year in Bogota.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack there. And I think there's a lot. There's a tremendous amount. We'll keep it to weightlifting. What I think is interesting is the fact you did. How long did you do CrossFit for?
10 years,
Yeah,
8
that's
years.
insane to me. Like in doing that in parallel with weightlifting is incredibly. I'll say impressive. I'll say impressive. Were you
Dumb, impressive,
were
interchangeable.
you were you competing in CrossFit? Like you were a high level competitor, and that's why it was also very hard to give up.
I so I competed in the CrossFit Games when I was a senior in high school, and then I was like consistently missing regionals as an
Oh, okay.
individual by like 2 to 3 spots. And so I think that's what killed me is I was so close
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
so long that I thought I could still
Wow.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then so I'm sure you didn't take that change lightly of like, okay, I'm gonna switch into weightlifting full time. That transition specifically, how did that do you remember how that felt? Like how your body felt, the differences in training, differences in lifestyle that kind of go along with that?
Yeah, definitely. I actually wound up like so my biggest fear still at this point was like I'm going to gain so much weight because
Yeah.
the 100 burpees that I'm doing a day, are the thing that's holding me together. I actually
Yeah.
wound up losing a little bit of weight. I
Wow.
think just
Okay.
because like there was so much inflammation in my body because I was training
Mm,
just such different, like my body was just holding on to whatever it could. But I also went into a ton of volume, and so that helped me mentally because
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I was still training a lot, like probably more than I should have. But it was hard mentally because you go from getting to turn your brain off for half of your session in CrossFit, where it was just like, go, get into a pain cave and go, to having to be really intentional with every single
Mm,
movement.
yeah.
So I remember that transition being super difficult for me. And also just like I wanted to impress. Like I wanted Coach Bob's approval.
Yeah.
And in weightlifting, working hard is important, but doing it right is almost more important.
Mm,
Whereas with CrossFit, I could be like, look, I have like given all that I can give. Like like I am on the floor, whatever. And with weightlifting, it's like you could mess up with a 65% snatch.
yeah.
And it
Yeah.
has nothing to do with effort. It has to do with
Yes.
intentionality. And
Yeah.
so that switch was really hard for me.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I'm thinking of someone who I coach, and they might miss like they might be like 65 kilo snatcher or whatever, and they might miss like 50, and it's like whoopsie snatch, and it's like that should no, like that shouldn't
Right.
happen. We shouldn't have
Right.
whoopsie lifts like that. Those
Yes.
should not exist, and it's not like a funny thing. It's more so like we actually want consistency and we want repeatability and we want efficiency. And like those like funny little misses are really annoying in the sense of then you show up to a competition and you have a whoopsie miss and it's like, well, there goes one of the attempts we needed to
Yes.
podium medal total qualify for. Um, so you're I could see why you'd be hyper frustrated if that were to happen. So moving into weightlifting where it's like everything matters and the execution of it matters the most. That's definitely a difference in mindset.
Definitely.
With the programming, I know you were getting kind of like coached in weightlifting by your CrossFit coach. Um, what was the switch? So you worked with him until you started working with Coach Morris.
Hmm.
Yeah, that must have been pretty dramatic. Like the shift must have been
Yes.
very, very dramatic. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yes. And also because like I was so insistent on continuing to do CrossFit. And so I
Mm,
think
yeah,
especially like in the very end, the CrossFit coach who was programming my weightlifting, I think he was just trying to like protect my body, right? He was like, I
yeah,
cannot give this girl anymore because she's gonna combust. Like her body is
yeah,
not gonna be able to handle this at some point. Um, yeah, I mean, I remember Saturdays I'd be at the gym for like 6 hours. It was just not. It was not smart. I was not
yeah.
accomplishing anything. But yeah, it was definitely a stark switch. I think the biggest change was just the volume of reps at lighter percentages.
Okay, yeah,
Um, And Coach Bob had like, I mean, his nickname is No Mercy Morris, and it holds
Yeah.
true. It was just like, I remember one time I missed a snatch and he just looked at me and said, "Go get your straps." And I think I worked with like 35 kilos for the next 40 minutes. Um,
Wow.
and that was tough, but it was
Yeah.
good and it built a really like intense base for me. Which I think is funny now because Brittany always says it's hard to correct things technically on me because we have to build to a higher percentage to correct them. Whereas
Mm.
like I can do it
Yeah.
correctly at
Yes.
35, 45, 55.
Yeah.
My form starts breaking down at like 95%. And so because of the like base of strength that Coach Bob has
Mm.
built and that just like the volume that I have done at higher percentages, we have to still work at those percentages. And I
Yeah.
think that
Yes.
like Brittany and I will always have to go back and forth where it's like, oh, okay, fine, like go up because we're only gonna fix it if we like give
Yeah.
you more of a
Yes.
volume load.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. It's so interesting to me. What was your training like before you started working with Bob?
Like in
Like
terms of
weightlifting wise. Like, do you remember the
it was
structure?
like it was like I want to say it was like full snatch on Monday, snatch and squat on Monday, clean and jerk and like powers on Tuesdays, clean and jerks on Wednesdays, rest Thursday as the like universal rest day. Which is funny because now I rest on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
And then heavy Friday and then Saturday, I think I would also go heavy.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay. And then with Coach Bob, I know I've heard of like his training, and the intense amount of work. What was the general structure of that like? Or what's the general structure? And then as a coach, what do you think worked really well that you would suggest or advise other coaches to try out?
Yeah. Okay, so my morning sessions would be on Mondays would always be block snatch, like some form of block technique work, but it would go heavy. Like every session I was hitting probably 90%. But it
Damn.
would be like
Yeah.
heavy block snatches, heavy back squats in the morning, and then in the afternoon, clean and jerks, pulls, accessory, and then like sometimes power snatches, depending
Okay.
on how he was feeling. Then
How
Tuesdays
he
would
was feeling?
always yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Tuesdays would
totally.
always be powers of everything and
Okay.
accessories. Wednesdays in the morning would be heavy jerks of some form. And then heavy front squats. So sometimes that would be like tempo, pause squat. Like it was just
Mm,
always heavy. Then Wednesday afternoons were always snatch complexes heavy.
okay.
So sometimes it would be like heavy snatch triples or something like that, pulls, accessories. And then Friday mornings were powers and heavy back squats. And then Friday afternoons were like heavy full session. And then Saturdays, depending on how Friday went, were like generally powers, but also sometimes we'd
Yeah.
throw in some full
Holy
lifts
shit.
depending on if I
Yeah.
like really shit the bed on Friday.
Yeah.
I think what worked really well is like one, he built a huge strength base.
Mm,
So I'm like, I'm really confident even now, like in my leg strength. A lot of what has to be worked on is technique, which isn't even a coaching thing. It's just like Coach Bob and I weren't in person. So
mm,
once I
yeah.
moved, and so it was a lot
Yes.
harder for him to gauge like how much I was missing and like how things were really going. Because communication was just harder once I moved. But yeah, so I think the structure, it also just built a really big work capacity for me. Like
Mm,
I can keep going until like somebody says to stop, which is
yeah.
good. Brittany often has to like tell me to, she's like, strip the bar. Like, and sometimes I'll even like it's hard for me. So I will like find somebody random standing in my gym and I'm like, hey, if I miss this, can you just come over and like strip the bar for me? Just as like
Wow,
somebody
yeah.
else is seeing this also.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but it's like
Yeah.
I can miss like there was a point this cycle where I think I missed a 128 clean and jerk 3 times, then hit it the fourth. And it's like, I should not be able to clean like
That's insane.
96%
Yeah,
4 times and then make the jerk, you know? So it's just
yeah.
like stuff like that.
I think there are 2 things that stand out as being incredibly impressive is, like, the mental fortitude to just get to go under a heavy clean repeatedly is, like, I'll say it's I mean, I think it's tough. You know, like, I'll get smashed by a fucking weight and I'll make it, and I'm like, "I'm not going up." Like, I don't wanna go up. That was uncomfortable, and adding more weight and going up would be precarious at best. So I'll commend you on that, and then I'll say also being able to tolerate that much training is not that's like that as a coach is something you desperately want because while weightlifting is a expression of strength, it's an expression of like technical prowess too. You know, strength is a skill, but I think with weightlifting it's even more of a skill. And I think your ability to like practice and practice and practice and do a ton of volume incredibly important. And the athlete I'm thinking of who's actually weightlifting and powerlifting, she has a lot of similarities. So she did competed in weightlifting on Thursday. She got bronze in the total, silver in the snatch, and then on Saturday
Damn.
competed in powerlifting and squatted. She weighs like 50 kilos. She squatted 137, deadlifted 165.
Okay,
And
that's
then
insane.
right after that, she's like, I want to go into the training hall and do weightlifting. And she like snatched 58 and then, you know, clean and jerk, whatever.
No,
And
that's
she's like, okay,
insane.
now I want to rest. You know? So she has this like insatiable urge and drive to train and also can tolerate it. So we'll do the same thing. Honestly, it's funny hearing you talk about Coach Morris like that. She was kind of looking a little ragged. She missed something or Clark something. And I'm like, all right, go to 55 and we're just going to do a set of 5. And I want every
Yeah,
rep to be perfect. And she's like, okay, I'm going to make them perfect so I don't have to do that again
right.
or do more reps or do more work. So, um, yeah, that's really interesting to hear it coming from your perspective. And I think interesting in that you're in a heavier weight class than she is. So she's like around 50 kilo body weight, so like 48, 49. And
Yeah.
you're in the 70s. And it's like, okay, as you start to scale up, that becomes less and less feasible because you're so strong and you have so much body mass. And it's like, it's not as easy to tolerate that much training or that much hard training. Um, how did working with Coach Morris change when you started working with Brittany? And when did that happen?
I switched from Coach Bob to Brittany a year and a half ago, right after
Okay.
Thailand, the
Okay.
last World Cup. I did not make the Olympics, and I was like, all right, something's got to shift.
Mm,
Like I just think at this point I need something different. And Coach Bob and I talked, and I mean, I will only ever say great things about him. I think he's an incredible coach, incredible in everything. I think it was just like
yeah.
every athlete as they evolve, you know, they just need different things. And at that point, I was having a lot of pain in my knees, which honestly still flares up sometimes. But like I couldn't even walk up the stairs without pain.
Yeah.
I was always snatching with knee sleeves. When I clean and jerked, I would wear 2 pairs of knee sleeves. Like something hit me where I was like, this is not sustainable for another
Yeah.
4 years. And like Israel is giving me this chance. I don't want to blow it. Um, but so then I switched after Thailand, and then the biggest change was just Brittany was really intent like the biggest focus was intentionality. She was like,
Mm,
"I know you can do a million reps, but I want you to do one really good rep." And
yeah.
also she wanted because like my in Thailand, I snatched 101 and I clean and jerk 25 and then we jumped to 31 and I missed the jerk twice, which like yes, that was very reasonable. And Brittany's big thing was like, you had no business making 101 and you had no business putting 131 on the bar. And like,
Mm,
let's make it so that I'm going to put that on the bar as like your first
yes.
attempts and that
Yeah.
I have every confidence that you can make it. And so it's even cool, like the Arnold seeing like, yeah, I hit one, like, yes, it was my third attempt, but it should have been my second. But like, we're getting there, you know, we're
Yeah.
building up to actually being able to confidently put those weights on the
Mm,
bar and not as
yeah.
just a Hail Mary. Um, but yeah, so being more intentional. Brittany is also very like technically oriented, which is really helpful. And so we're squatting a lot less. So the volume is way, way down. She has me doing a lot more like athlete days, just to get me like more generally balanced.
Mm,
And I mean I've PR'd front squat, back squat, snatch, clean and jerk, power clean, power snatch. Like I have PR'd everything since working with her. So
awesome.
that has been nice to see as I am getting older because I feel like that doesn't always happen. Um, but yeah, we're still definitely struggling with my like knee pain and stuff like that. But I think as I'm getting older, I'm better able to tell Brittany, like, hey, I'm
Mm,
in pain. And that was really difficult for me with Coach Bob. Like, I would be
yeah.
crying in a
Yeah.
session, but he wouldn't be there, so he wouldn't know, and then I just wouldn't
Yeah.
tell him. So part of
Yeah.
it was like an unfair expectation on as like for me to have of him, because if he didn't know that I was in pain, like why would anything change?
Yeah. And
Um,
I'm sure to
yeah,
some extent, like, I don't know Coach Bob. I mean, I think Hannah gave me his number and I reached out and I didn't hear back. But I think there's like, and so this might be a very unfair assumption, but there's probably like a generational difference just in the terms of communication and um, kind of being able to stay in touch. So I could see that being a lot more difficult, especially if the training's really fucking hard. Um,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
What does your training look like now? Like, what does a week look like for you? Or like after the Arnold shifting into training, what does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, this week is a little weird because I was sick, but didn't want to take days off. So Brittany is throwing me a bone and letting me train a little bit. But my normal week is that I'll do Sundays will be a heavy session. So it'll be like some variation of snatch, some variation of clean and jerk. It honestly does shift, but it's like I will do
Mm,
some sort of snatch, some sort of clean and jerk, and some sort of squat, and then like a good amount of accessories. Then my Mondays are fully athlete days, so like jumping, deadlifts, plyos, bodybuilding.
mm,
Then my Tuesdays will also be a heavy session, so there will be some type of snatch, some type of clean and jerk, some type of pull, some type of squat. Um, I rest Wednesdays, which was like very difficult for me to switch to as somebody who rested on Thursdays for like 10 years.
yeah.
And then I actually do heavy Thursdays. So I'll
Mm,
snatch, clean and jerk, squat, pull, um, sometimes press. And then Fridays are fully accessory days again. So like jumping, running, uh, fun stuff, air squats, like fun stuff that also makes your body
yeah.
feel good.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'll rest on Saturdays.
Yeah.
So a big shift from what I was doing. When Brittany and I first started working together, I was like, "Can I still do 2-a-days?" And she was kind of like, "No, absolutely. Like you don't need to. That's not like maybe there will be a time in the future that is helpful, but like where you are, like we need to maximize your strength right now, and we don't have like it's not important to build more strength if you can't. Like my front squat is 160, but my best clean is 136. So it's like
Mm,
we can close that gap a ton technically without building any more strength. And so
yeah.
it's like earn the heavier attempts, earn having to
Mm,
build strength kind of thing. And we're maintaining. Like I've still PR'd my back squat and front squat since working with Brittany, but the big focus has been on actually using my strength.
yeah.
Um, I remember Bo used to say, "You have legs, girl, use them." And I'm still working on that.
Yeah, that's funny. What would you say besides the technical components, because you mentioned being like brutishly strong, um, and working on the technical aspects of, snatches and cleans and jerks, but what would you say let's do this. What do you do really, really well as far as training and competition goes? And then we'll follow that up with like what are you consistently working on?
It would be so much easier for me to only talk about what I was working on. No, I think um in competition, staying like mentally calm and mentally there, I've gotten really good at, and like being able
Mm,
to be super intentional when I'm at the meet, like going out there, not rushing right off the floor, that kind of thing. I think I've gotten really good at. And in training, just like being really consistent in terms of like I will never skip a session. I always get my work done. I will always prioritize lifting inside and outside of the gym. Like I'm really good at that because I've been doing it for so long. Um, I'm trying to think. My cleans are pretty good, I will say, for the most
okay.
part. There's some anomalies, but I think like I really enjoy doing cleans because they like of
Mm,
the three, they're the thing that I am the best at.
yeah.
And we've made a lot of strides with my jerk. Like my jerks at the Arnold were kind of ugly, but as of late, they have been much better than they were a year ago, 2 years ago. Things that I'm working on is like consistency of reps. I'll have a really good snatch day, and then it's like everything changes, and I can't remember. Like my body can't seem to remember what I did the day before.
Yeah.
Um, And I still get a little bit emotional, I will say, and I'm working on that. It is because I care, but I can definitely spiral a little bit
Yeah.
if I am consistently missing. 10 years in, it doesn't change. But we are working on it, and I think it's easy for me to see, like, I am getting better at understanding that, like, every session is not do or die, right? Like, sometimes it's better to just stop. And so, like,
Yeah.
I have done better about that, where instead of just going until I, like, inevitably hurt myself or miss in a dumb way, like, I've gotten better about saying, "Okay, like, that was good. I'm gonna do, even if 130 was programmed today, I'm gonna do 115 really well and then move on." So,
Yeah.
like, caring more about the quality than the weight on the bar, um, that's kind of like a focus, but I've gotten a little bit better at it.
Yeah. With the competition aspect, and I'm sure the competition over the weekend still is fresh in everyone's minds. How do you feel like you were able to develop that ability to be more patient, more aware, more like in control of the situation versus letting the situation control you, which I feel like can happen. And once it does, it's like, oh shit, you know?
Yeah, it's hard to get out of, and I've
Yeah.
absolutely been there. I mean, I have worked with a ton of mental performance coaches. Tom
Mm,
Smalley is awesome. I have a therapist that I meet with biweekly. I worked with people before Tom, and I think that I used to have this, like, unfair expectation of myself that if I wasn't beating myself up and if it wasn't really mad, then that meant that I didn't care. And
mm,
so, like, what right did I have to be proud of myself if I had any misses? And that was a thought pattern that I
oh,
have worked really hard to interrupt, because what I have learned as I'm getting older is that it's not helpful. Like, it's not
yeah,
adding to my
yeah,
life.
yes.
Um, and I think
Wow.
part of it was for attention, like, unintentionally for attention. I've learned through therapy, like, when I'm the middle child, like,
Yeah.
I was supposed to be like the golden child, always, like, got A's and everything like that. And I had to, the way that I got attention was like that I was so hard on myself, and I got a lot of
Mm,
positive reinforcement for that.
yeah.
And so I've almost had to unlearn that. And I mean, I am still very hard on myself, but I've had to learn that, like, it's okay to be hard on yourself and at the same time be proud. I think back to some meets that I've done where I just, like, couldn't enjoy it at all because I was just
Mm,
beating up myself so much. Even, like, the CrossFit Games, like, I think back and that was a horrible experience for me because I was just so upset that I got 5th, um, that I couldn't enjoy any of it. And so I think that's
yeah.
also, like, a good reminder for me. Even at the Arnold now, like, every single meet, I do intentionally take a minute in the back room to say, "You're here. That's cool.
Yeah.
Good job. You got
Yeah. Yeah.
here." And then you go on to, obviously you wanna do well, you bigger goals, like, you want to medal, you want to do all of those things, but being able to, like, one, understand that caring doesn't only have to be shown by, like, being pissed if you don't do well,
Mm,
and two, to be proud of yourself, because otherwise, like, you're gonna look back and be like, "Damn, I didn't enjoy any of this," because sport is finite. Yeah, it's like it can be taken away at any moment, and it's important to appreciate it while it still is there and still in your life.
yeah. I feel like that's a great way to kind of contain that segment on your time in weightlifting. Um, I do think it is fun. I spoke with Brandon Victorian and then Caden Coy recently. Those are like the athlete interviews I've done, the last few months. And I think it's fun to have more personal questions. I just had a funny thought. I'm not going to say it, but like, what do you do outside of weightlifting? Those kinds of
Yeah.
questions. So, what do you do outside of weightlifting that you enjoy?
Yeah, I feel like not everybody knows this. I also have a full-time job. I work at Google as a program lead on the legal
Mm.
team. So I am, my, like, official title is change management lead, which is fun, and it's also interesting because I spend 40 hours a week not being a weightlifter at all, and, like, people don't even, not everybody at work even knows that I'm a weightlifter, which is kind of funny. It's like I have this, like, split identity where I'm just,
Yeah.
like, very much a corporate girl for a lot of the time, but that takes up a lot of my time. I also have a dog, and if you follow me on Instagram, you know this because I'm obsessed with my dog. He is a menace, but, I like to hike and go on walks. I live in Colorado, and it's beautiful
Mm.
here, so I do try to take advantage of that. I also do like to read. I have been bad about reading, but the last book I read, I highly recommend. It's called In My Time of Dying by Sebastian Junger, and it is
Mm,
really interesting, and it like contemplates respect for life, respect for death, what it means, like what do we live for, but he brings in a scientific perspective too.
mm,
But so yeah, those are the things I like to do. I really like to walk. That is like
mm.
very important to me. That keeps me grounded. I like have to walk every day. Brittany always jokes on international trips that she has to like go take me for a walk. Um because like I need steps. We're like in Bahrain making the security walk with us.
Oh, that's so funny. So what kind of, as far as books go, that sounds more kind of nonfiction, pop sciencey. What kind of books do you generally lean towards?
Yeah. I am all over the place. Like I will sometimes read smut if I am in the mood. Like I really liked Fourth Wing. I really liked Akatar. I think sometimes it's healthy to like, turn your brain off. I
Yeah.
also do really like stoicism. I
Mm,
am really failing to get through meditations right now. I'm like
okay.
halfway through, but I've been
Yeah.
trying to finish meditations since high school. But I really like Ryan Holiday as like a
Mm,
easier
yeah.
stoicism light. But so all of his books I really like. Sometimes I'll get too intense. Like I remember when I found David Goggins, I was like, you
Oh,
have to
okay.
be all in all the time. So I had to like take a step back. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna read something like fun for a little bit because
Yeah.
my mind, I'm like, I can't watch TV. Like what can I be doing that's productive right now?
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
so
so I'm
funny.
kind of a mixed bag. I could go all over the place. But I am determined to finish meditations because
Okay.
I do really like philosophy and stoicism.
Very cool. Very cool. I think you fit right in with the podcast audience then. Well, you fit right in with me. I would say, for everyone who's been a long time listener to the podcast, which we have many of those, um, the first philosophy book I read was Meditations in like my early 20s. And I can picture it vividly. And I actually ended up, there's a kid I coach at the high school I'm a strength coach at, and I was talking to him about philosophy, and I told him about Meditations. I was in Pittsburgh randomly one day in a bookstore, and that's the only interesting book I could find. So I bought it and I gave it to him.
Aw.
So yeah, very much respect that. And I also have followed that similar arc. So I think it's interesting to hear. Then, I think the question I asked Caden, is what's your favorite, like, type of food or favorite type of cuisine? What do you like to
Ooh.
eat?
Okay, I'm a psychopath. I really like to eat food that I make, even though it's not that good. But
Mm.
so, like, my ideal meal is like grilled chicken thighs,
Oh, yeah.
rice, and veggies.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
I do really like sushi as well, just
Yeah.
like stark opposite. But yeah, I'm like a big chocolate person. So even if you see me in the back room, like I probably have peanut butter cups with me. Um, but yeah, I think so. It's like it's not a cuisine, but I love
Mm.
peanut butter cups.
Peanut butter cups. I'm sure the next competition you show up at, someone's gonna have listened to this podcast and bring you peanut butter cups, so I'd be prepared for that.
Honestly, I would be thrilled.
Yeah, that's too funny. Yeah, I think this was a fantastic show and a lot of fun to get to know you as someone who's a mainstay in USA weightlifting and then also in the international stage. Um, if people are interested in kind of keeping up with your journey, what are your plans or what are your hopes? I guess kind of compete through 2028, try to qualify for the Olympics, but is that kind of the sole focus?
Yeah, that's the big focus right now. My next meet will be Europeans in Georgia. That's like end of April. My goal there is to hit 6 lifts and medal. So yeah, I medaled the last 2 years, so
Mm.
hopefully I can improve my standing. Got 3rd last year, so I'd like to win. I think I'm capable of winning. Um, but yeah, I'm just gonna keep working hard. I'll do that and then Worlds and then keep improving my total and the goal is LA. Um, yeah.
Do you know roughly what you'd have to do to qualify for LA? Like,
No, I mean
total-wise?
no, I mean I'm guessing it's going to have to be at least 240 plus.
Okay.
But I think after Worlds we'll have a better idea of just like even what weight classes people are going. It was,
Yeah.
I think, harder in the last quad because you could have those Hail Marys where people would go down or go up, but now that you have to stay in the same weight class, I actually think that's positive for
Yeah.
like for tracking at least, because you're like, okay, well, these are the people in that class.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we'll have a better idea after that. And my goal for this quad is to be more present so that I can look back and say that I did, one, do absolutely everything I could do, and two, that I enjoyed it, because I think you look at the best of the best and
Yeah.
they're having a good time. Like you watch Olivia lift and you can tell that she is in fact enjoying the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good lesson we could all learn. And I think people like laugh that she's like so cute hopping off the stage, but I think I think everybody could learn from that.
Yeah.
That like you do well when you're having
Yeah.
fun and that you're
Having
like
fun.
being intentional and enjoying the thing that you were spending, 100 hours a week doing.
Yeah. And sometimes those fun moments like in the back that you remember the most. Like I have this thing I do with Danny, who's one of my powerlifters, who's like really fucking freakishly strong. And when we're in the back, we always have like, gummy worms or something, and we'll like cheers them and take a little selfie. And it's like a nice little ritual we
Yeah.
have in the back where we can kind of ground ourselves and say, like, oh, this is really cool. We get to do this. So I love that. And then yeah, if people want to keep up with your journey, where can they kind of follow you and watch all your training, and maybe even reach out if they want to give a word of support?
Yeah, definitely. My Instagram is Celia Gold. I post mostly lifting videos and also a lot of stuff about my dog. So if you don't like dogs, I don't recommend following me.
Yeah, awesome. If anyone's interested in keeping up with me, especially after they learned so much about how awesome I am during this podcast, you can follow me on
Yeah.
Instagram at Josh_Phil WL. It's PHILWL. Philosophical weightlifting everywhere else. We will catch you all next week on another episode of the Philosophical Weightlifting Podcast.